You were taught that you must hold on tightly, that you must control every detail of life to avoid failure. But the tighter you hold, the more exhausted you become. The universe is not an enemy working against you. It is like a river flowing. You can learn to move with it and trust. Through ancient Buddhist teachings, we will explore how to let go, so you may find peace in your heart and deep rest for your body. Allow yourself to relax. Take a slow, deep breath in and gently exhale. This journey is not about turning you into someone else. It is about returning to the quiet stillness that has always been within you. Are you ready to trust that flow? If you are, share your thoughts in the comments below. Lesson 1. Letting go. Not weakness, but strength. In modern society, especially in the United States, many people are taught that they must hold on, that they must control everything in order to survive and succeed. But Buddhism teaches something different. Letting go is not weakness, it is a strength of the inner spirit. From the Four Noble Truths, the Buddha pointed out that suffering arises when we cling. We want everything to go our way. We want youth to last forever, a career that will never fail, loved ones who will never leave. Yet the truth of impermanence is always present. The tighter we cling, the deeper the suffering becomes. Letting go is the courage to face impermanence and accept that everything changes. A study at Harvard revealed that practicing mindfulness, which is closely connected to letting go, can reduce stress by as much as 40%. This means that when you learn to breathe and release, your body and mind truly change. The brain lowers its stress response. Your heart rate and blood pressure become more stable. Imagine the story of an American businessman. He once ran a large company, working 14 hours a day, always trying to control every single detail. Eventually, he burned out and fell into depression. It was only when he attended a meditation retreat that he learned the art of letting go, not abandoning his work, but releasing the things he could not control. From then on, he worked fewer hours but with greater effectiveness, and more importantly, he discovered peace within himself. Letting go does not mean being careless or avoiding responsibility. It means doing your very best in the present moment without being bound by the outcome. This is the spirit of non-attachment that the Buddha taught. When you let go, you become more flexible, more clear-minded, like an open hand ready to receive new things. Now think about your own life. Is there something you are holding on to too tightly? Perhaps a relationship that has already ended, a painful memory, or a constant fear about the future. All of these weigh you down. Here is a small challenge for today. Sit down, close your eyes, and breathe for 5 minutes. Each time a worrying thought appears, breathe out and silently whisper to yourself, "I let go." Just 5 minutes, and you may feel your mind grow lighter. Letting go is true strength, because only when you release do you create space for freedom and for love. As the Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh once said, letting go does not mean losing, it means gaining freedom, and that freedom is the very foundation of peace. Lesson 2. Karma, a conversation with the universe. In American culture, many people often think of karma as a kind of punishment, that if you do something wrong, the universe will punish you. But in Buddhist teachings, karma is not a sentence. It is the natural flow of cause and effect. In the Samyutta Nikaya, the Buddha taught, intention is karma. This means karma does not come from outside. It begins within the mind from our intentions, our thoughts, and our actions. When you plant a seed of compassion, that seed blossoms into joy. When you plant a seed of anger, that seed blossoms into suffering. Karma is not a rigid chain of destiny. It is more like an ongoing dialogue with the universe. Every thought, every word, every action you send out is a response within that flow, and the universe replies through the very results you experience. Modern science is beginning to confirm this. One study found that when people practice compassion, dopamine levels in the brain, the chemical that creates feelings of joy, increase by about 25%. When you open your heart to help others, your body itself responds with happiness and healing. The universe answers you with biology, with emotion, with health. Picture an American doctor working in a crowded hospital. The workload is heavy, patients are overwhelming, colleagues are burned out. But instead of letting stress take control, he chooses to plant seeds of compassion. He listens to patients not only with his ears, but with his heart. He sees each interaction as a chance to plant a wholesome seed. And over time, he notices that not only do his patients feel comforted, but he himself feels less stressed and less exhausted. Karma is not theory. It is alive in every moment. The Bodhisattva path emphasizes this truth as well. A bodhisattva does not only care about personal karma, but chooses to plant seeds of compassion for others, helping them transform their karma. By easing the suffering of others, you are also transforming yourself. In daily life, you can see this clearly. A kind word at work can shift the entire day of a colleague. A patient gesture at home can break the cycle of anger. Karma is not just about the next life, it is about this very moment. Ask yourself, what tone do you want your conversation with the universe to carry? Do you want to plant seeds of worry, anger, and jealousy? Or do you want to plant seeds of peace, love, and wisdom? Here is a simple practice. Each evening before you sleep, write down 3 actions from the day that made you feel grateful. It could be a smile you gave to a stranger, a meal you cooked for your family, or a quiet minute you allowed yourself to rest. By writing them down, you are recognizing the wholesome seeds you have planted, and this awareness will nurture a positive cycle of karma. Karma is not something to fear. It is like a mirror, faithfully reflecting back what you send out. And the good news is this: at any moment, you can begin planting new seeds. You do not need to wait for another lifetime. In this very moment, you can choose a different action, a different thought, a different word. How do you feel karma has shaped your life? Share your reflections in the comments so we can learn from one another. And if you wish to continue exploring more Buddhist lessons, make sure to subscribe so you will not miss out. Lesson 3. Emptiness, the open space of freedom. In Buddhism, there is a concept that is often misunderstood: emptiness. When people hear the word empty, they tend to think of nothingness, of a meaningless void. But in truth, emptiness is the very foundation of freedom and creativity. The Heart Sutra contains a famous line: "Form is emptiness, emptiness is form." This is not telling you to deny reality, but to see clearly that nothing exists independently. Everything depends on everything else. What we call self cannot be separated from our parents, our friends, our community, or the environment around us. In the United States, many people fall into anxiety because they believe they must carry everything alone. An office worker in New York may feel isolated in a city of millions, convinced that all success or failure rests heavily on their shoulders. But emptiness reminds us, you are not alone. You are part of a vast web of life. The morning cup of coffee you drink carries the effort of farmers in Brazil, transport workers, and baristas. When you recognize this connection, you begin to feel lighter. A study at Stanford showed that meditations on emptiness can reduce anxiety by up to 35%. When you release the belief that I must control everything, your mind opens. You start to see work, family, and society as one large picture, and all you need to do is play your part naturally. The story of an American artist illustrates this beautifully. She was once trapped in creative block, pressured by the idea that every piece must be perfect. But when she learned about emptiness, she realized creativity does not come from a controlling ego, but from the open space that appears when the mind is still. She began to meditate before painting, letting go of the need to force ideas, and suddenly fresh inspiration flowed effortlessly. In emptiness, the new is born. Emptiness can also be applied right inside American workplaces. In the middle of endless meetings, instead of clinging to "I am right, you are wrong," you can remember that every perspective is shaped by different conditions. Seeing that interdependence allows you to listen more, argue less, and collaborate more effectively. Here is a small practice. Whenever you feel anxious or stressed, pause, breathe, and look around. Ask yourself, does this truly exist on its own? Where did this feeling come from? From the environment, from other people, from memory? When you recognize this web of conditions, you realize the weight is not yours alone to bear. Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh once said, "When you touch emptiness, you touch freedom. This freedom is not an escape from life, but release from the illusion that you are a separate, isolated self. Within that freedom, you can live more deeply, love more genuinely, and create without limits." So, have you ever experienced emptiness in your own life? Perhaps it was in a moment when you gazed at the vast sky and felt yourself dissolve into the universe, or when you listened to a piece of music and forgot the self, becoming only harmony. These moments are gateways that open into emptiness. Lesson 4. Interdependence, the web of connection. In the Agama Sutras, the Buddha taught, when this exists, that arises. When this ceases, that also ceases. This is the principle of interdependence. Nothing exists on its own. Everything leans on everything else, like strands in an endless web. In the United States, you can see this clearly in everyday life. Social media, for example, is a living demonstration of interdependence. A single post can ripple out to millions. A kind word can bring hope to someone across the country. But at the same time, a false story can create stress and division. Interdependence reminds us, your actions are never only your own, they touch countless others. Sociological research shows that overuse of social media can increase stress and feelings of loneliness. Yet, when used mindfully, it can also become a bridge for healing. This reflects the spirit of interdependence. Nothing is purely good or bad. It all depends on how conditions are created and how they are received. Imagine an American family facing hardship. The father loses his job, the mother carries heavy financial strain, and the children feel unsafe. In crisis, if each person withdraws, the family fractures. But if they remember that one person's happiness or suffering is linked to the others, they choose to share, to support, to lift each other up. A shared meal, a hug, a word of comfort. These small gestures weave a net of wholesome conditions that carry the family through. Interdependence is also alive in American nature. A forest in California is not just trees, but an ecosystem. Roots connect underground, sharing nutrients, warning one another of danger. Human beings are the same. Each of us is like a leaf on the tree of life. When one leaf withers, the whole tree is affected. To practice interdependence in daily life, try this. Each day, choose one small conscious act to nurture connection. Send a message of gratitude, help a colleague, or simply offer a smile to a stranger. Every small action touches a web far greater than you imagine. Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh once said, "We are all linked, like drops of dew on a spider's web. When one drop falls, the entire web trembles." When you live with awareness of interdependence, responsibility no longer feels like a burden. It becomes an opportunity to create a positive impact. So, can you see the conditions that are shaping your life? A friend from long ago, a memory, a small decision made years earlier. All of these have woven the present moment you now live in. And today, you too are weaving the future, not only for yourself, but for many others. Share in the comments, have you ever experienced interdependence in a meaningful moment? Your story may become a wholesome condition that inspires someone else. Lesson 5. Non-self. Liberation from illusion. In life, we often think, I am me. This is my body, my mind, my reputation. But Buddhism teaches that what we call the self is in fact only an illusion. This is the teaching of non-self, one of the most important pillars for freeing human beings from suffering. Imagine standing before the vast Pacific Ocean on the west coast of the United States. Waves rise and fall, one after another. If you look at a single wave, you might call it separate. Yet in truth, the wave is only a temporary expression of the ocean. It cannot exist apart from the water. Our so-called self is the same. It is only a temporary manifestation of a greater flow. When you believe you are just the wave, you fear disappearing. But when you realize you are the ocean, that fear dissolves. In modern psychology, many studies also show that the illusion of a fixed self is a source of anxiety and depression. A study at Yale University revealed that when people practice reflections on non-self, recognizing that the self is not separate, not fixed, levels of depression can decrease by as much as 30%. The reason is clear. When you are no longer chained to the image of, I must be this way, I must succeed, I must be perfect, you become free. Consider the story of an American athlete who suffered a severe injury. For years, he tied his identity completely to the phrase, I am an athlete. When injury ended his career, he fell into despair. But through a meditation retreat, he learned that he was not only an athlete, he was also a father, a husband, a friend, a human being breathing in the present moment. He began to discover joy in coaching young children, in spending time with his family. By letting go of the illusion of a fixed self, he rediscovered the meaning of life. Non-self does not mean denying your existence. It means you are not confined to a rigid mold. You are like a river, always changing, always flowing. Each day you learn, you experience, you grow. When you understand this, you no longer imprison yourself in labels. In American workplaces, the idea of non-self can ease much stress. In corporate culture, people often identify themselves with titles. I am a director. I am an outstanding employee. When jobs shift, they easily fall into crisis. But if you understand non-self, you see, you are not only your job. Work is a part of you, but not the whole. And so, you can face career changes with more calm and clarity. Here is a small exercise. Write down 5 words that describe yourself. For example, I am a mother, I am an engineer, I am an American, I am a warrior, I am someone who loves music. Then ask yourself, are these fixed? Tomorrow, next week, next year, might they change? When you see that all labels are temporary, you feel lighter. Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh once reminded, you do not need to try to become someone. You are already part of the universe. When you let go of the illusion of self, you do not lose anything. On the contrary, you expand into connection with all of life, and that is true liberation. Going deeper, non-self does not mean that you disappear. It means you are released from invisible chains. When you think, I must succeed in order to have value, that very thought becomes a prison. But when you realize that your value does not come from labels, but from the life flowing in every breath, you are free. In American psychotherapy, many therapists use the concept of self as context. The idea that the self is a vast backdrop in which all emotions and thoughts simply pass through. This is a modern way of describing non-self. When you see that you are not identical with temporary emotions, anger, sadness, anxiety, you are no longer controlled by them. You see that they simply arise and fade, like clouds drifting across the sky. Consider a real story. An American woman lost her husband in an accident. At first, she fell into deep despair, believing, I am only half of what I was. I am no longer myself. But when she joined a meditation group, she learned that the self is not fixed. The love she once shared with her husband still lived on in every act of care for her children, in every smile she gave to others. She had not lost herself. She was continuing in new forms. By recognizing non-self, she not only healed but became a source of strength for other women who had also faced loss. Non-self also helps us act with compassion in American society, where competition often runs deep. When you believe that I and you are completely separate, It is easy to feel rivalry, to see others as threats. But when you see that we are simply different expressions of the same web of life, compassion naturally arises. When a colleague succeeds, you no longer feel threatened. You feel that their success is also a shared joy. To practice non-self, you can try a simple method. Sit quietly, close your eyes, and follow your breath. Each time a thought about I appears, I am weak, I am a failure, I must be better, smile gently and whisper, just a thought. The more you do this, the more you realize that the self is nothing more than a collection of passing ideas, with nothing permanent to hold on to. The Buddha once used a beautiful image. The self is like a cart assembled from many parts. Take away the parts, and there is no cart. In the same way, what we call I is only the coming together of body, mind, emotions, memories, and conditions. There is no eternal self. And when you see this, you are no longer trapped by illusion. Neuroscience is beginning to agree. Researchers have found that the brain does not have one fixed center of self. Instead, multiple regions work together to create the sense of identity. In other words, the I is a process, not an entity. This is science confirming what was taught more than 2,500 years ago. So ask yourself, is there something you are over-identifying with as me? Perhaps it is your career, a relationship, or a role you play. If tomorrow that changed, would you still be yourself? The answer may open the door to true freedom. When you let go of the illusion of self, you do not vanish, you become larger. You are not just an individual. You are the breath connected with millions of others, the wave connected with the ocean, the strand connected with the entire web of life. And that is the liberation that non-self offers. Freedom from fear, from pressure, from loneliness. You are not a small wave, lost and fragile. You are the vast and boundless ocean. Lesson 6. Noble speech. Silence that listens. In today's busy America, people talk more than ever through phones, emails, texts, and meetings. Yet Buddhism offers a profound wisdom. Noble speech, or truthful words, are born from silence. In Zen tradition, there is a saying, silence is the most powerful speech. This does not mean you never speak. It means you know when to speak and when to stop. Silence is not avoidance. It is deep listening, so that when words do arise, they carry the power to heal. A study at the University of Texas found that people who practiced 1 hour of silence each day increased their creativity by up to 40%. When you stop letting the noise of the world dictate your mind becomes fertile ground for new ideas. Picture an American manager. In a tense meeting, colleagues argue, each trying to speak louder to win. Instead of diving into the fight, he sits quietly and listens. After a few minutes, he simply says, I think we all want what is best for this project. The whole room falls silent. The silence before his words gave them the power to connect. Silence matters at home too. A father in California shared that instead of scolding his child each time a mistake was made, he learned to sit still and breathe deeply. Then he gently asked, Can you tell me what happened? Because of this, his child felt heard rather than judged. Buddhism teaches that words can be flowers or arrows. Silence helps us choose words that bring peace. When you listen deeply, you understand the pain behind someone's words. And when you speak from that understanding, your words become medicine. Here is a practice you can try today. Spend 15 minutes sitting quietly, with no phone, no music, and no interruptions. Simply listen to your own breath and to the sounds around you. You will discover that silence is not empty, it is full of life. Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh once said, When you are silent, you can hear the call of your own heart. In American society, where everyone is rushing, silence is one of the most precious gifts you can give to yourself and to others. And you, when was the last time you were truly silent? Not asleep, but awake, sitting still, simply listening. If it has been a long time, try it today. You may find a whole new world opening through silence. In Buddhist tradition, noble speech is not simply about saying beautiful words. It is the art of choosing the right words at the right time, grounded in silence. When words come from impatience, they often carry thorns. But when they arise from silence and mindfulness, they are like flowers. There is a story from Boston about a high school teacher. In her class, one student often lost his temper and disrupted lessons. Instead of scolding him, she chose silence. She paused for a few seconds, took a deep breath. When the boy had calmed down, she gently asked, "Would you like to share what is making you upset?" That moment of silence opened a space for him to be heard. He eventually spoke about difficulties at home, and from then on, the relationship between teacher and student transformed completely. In the scriptures, the Buddha once said, "Before speaking, ask yourself, is it true? Does it bring peace? Is it necessary? If not, remain silent." These three questions are the compass for noble speech. In the United States, where social media encourages quick replies and instant reactions, this principle is more important than ever. Every tweet, every comment can spread to millions. A single negative word can wound deeply, while a kind word can lift someone in crisis. When you pause before pressing send, you are practicing noble speech. Psychology also confirms the power of silence. A study at Harvard found that leaders who listen more than they speak are often seen as more trustworthy, and their teams perform at higher levels. This shows that silence itself can be a form of leadership strength. Imagine spending an entire day in silence. You still go to work, still live your life, but you choose not to join meaningless chatter. You speak only when it is truly needed, and when it comes from the heart. You may notice you have more energy, feel less drained, and when your words do come, they carry greater weight. Here is a small challenge. Choose one weekend morning and spend several hours in silence. Turn off your phone, no television, no music. Simply sit in the garden, listen to the birds, the wind, and your own breath. Afterwards, write down your reflections. You will see that silence is not frightening, it is a refuge for the soul. Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh once wrote, "Speak in such a way that the other person suffers less. That is the practice of noble speech." And to do that, silence is the first step. So, would you dare to try a day of silence? Share your experience in the comments. Who knows, your silence may become an inspiration for others. Lesson 7. Impermanence and the 5 remembrances. In the Pali Canon, the Buddha taught the 5 remembrances. 1. I am certain to grow old. 2. I am certain to become ill. 3. I am certain to die. 4. Everything I love will change. 5. I can only carry the karma I create. At first, many Americans may see these teachings as dark or depressing, but in truth, they are the keys that unlock freedom. Because when we contemplate impermanence, we stop clinging to the illusion that anything can last forever. And it is in that moment that we truly learn to cherish each passing breath. During the COVID-19 pandemic, millions of Americans faced the fear of illness and death. Research from the CDC showed that those who practiced mindfulness of impermanence were about 25% more resilient in facing the fear of death compared to those who did not practice. They did not deny death, but through acceptance, they found peace even in the midst of crisis. One woman in New York shared her story. She lost both of her parents to COVID and felt she could never recover. But when she practiced the remembrance, all things are impermanent, she stopped fighting reality. Instead, she chose to remember her parents with gratitude and to pour her love into those still with her. Her pain slowly transformed into appreciation. Impermanence is not only about loss, it is also about opportunity. Every morning you wake up is different from the day before. A friend who drifted away may return. A wound of the heart can heal. When you see impermanence clearly, you do not fall into despair, you open to hope. In modern American life, where everything changes so quickly, jobs, technology, relationships, understanding impermanence is the key to balance. Instead of panicking when life shifts, you can breathe and remind yourself, this too shall pass. Like autumn in America, when leaves fall, it signals winter but also prepares the way for spring. Here is a simple practice. Choose an object you love, a flower in your garden or a favorite coffee cup. Sit quietly, look at it, and whisper, this will also change. When you accept that truth, you naturally treasure the present moment more deeply. Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh once said, because everything is impermanent, everything is possible. This is not a reason to fear, but a source of strength to renew your life. And you, has there ever been a difficult change in your life that opened a new door? If so, that was the gift of impermanence. In the experience of many Americans, impermanence can become a great teacher. A veteran who once served in Iraq shared that, after returning home, he was haunted by painful memories. He feared that those images would follow him forever. But through meditation on impermanence, he learned that emotions, too, are impermanent. Memories may return, but they do not stay. By learning to observe and let go, they gradually lost their weight. Impermanence helped him begin to heal from PTSD. The 5 remembrances also remind us, aging, illness, and death are not personal failures. They are the shared reality of all human beings. Accepting this makes us feel less alone. A cancer patient in Texas explained that by reflecting on impermanence, she no longer saw herself as an isolated victim, but as part of the human journey. She no longer feared death. Instead, she enjoyed each day with gratitude. On a social level, impermanence can shape how America faces crisis. During the pandemic, many communities found strength in reminding one another, this too shall pass. A simple phrase, yet it carried collective hope and helped them endure with resilience. In personal life, impermanence helps us release attachments. Have you ever clung to a relationship that had ended? Have you ever suffered from losing a job? Remember, that ending is the soil from which something new can grow. Like a forest after fire sprouting green shoots, loss becomes the ground for renewal. Here is a practice you can try. Before bed, close your eyes and reflect on the 5 remembrances. Silently repeat, I will grow old, I will become ill, I will die. Everything I love will change, and I can only carry my karma. At first, these words may feel heavy, but over time, they bring lightness. Because you are no longer running away, you are meeting truth with equanimity. Psychological research from the University of Wisconsin shows that people who regularly reflect on death experience less existential anxiety and tend to live more meaningful lives. When we remember that we will die, we stop postponing and begin to live fully. Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh once said, because we know we will die, we truly begin to live. This is the essence of impermanence. So, can you share in the comments, has there been an event in your life that made you realize impermanence and change the way you live? Your story may become the inspiration for someone else to discover peace. Lesson 8. Rebirth, the cycle of learning. In many cultures, rebirth is seen as a harsh loop where human beings are trapped in birth, death, and reincarnation. But in Buddhism, rebirth is not a punishment, it is an opportunity to learn. Every lifetime, every experience is a classroom for the mind. In the Mahaparinirvana Sutra, the Buddha reminded us, birth and death are the greatest school for living beings. This means that instead of fearing rebirth, we can see it as a journey of growth. With this view, we no longer feel trapped in the cycle. We see ourselves as participants in an ongoing process of learning. If you look closely at life in the United States, you will notice rebirth in every moment. You do not have to wait for the next life. Even today, you experience cycles, sadness followed by joy, failure followed by rising again, loss followed by discovery. Each cycle teaches you something new. An artist in Los Angeles once shared that after his career collapsed, He felt as if he had died inside, but through meditation and creating again, he called it a spiritual rebirth. He did not have to wait for another life. Right in this lifetime he experienced rebirth, from despair to hope, from loss to fresh creativity. Psychology speaks in the same way. Researchers point out that when people change harmful habits into healthy ones, they go through a kind of behavioral rebirth. It is like breaking out of an old cycle to begin a new one. A study at the University of California found that meditation helps people break negative loops in the brain, reducing stress by as much as 35%. This is clear evidence that rebirth can happen here and now. American culture also carries many stories of rebirth. One former prisoner, after leaving jail, became a social activist, helping young people avoid crime. He said, "I died once in prison, now I live again with a different purpose." This is rebirth, not only as a next life, but as a renewal of meaning within this very life. Here is a practice you can try. Notice a cycle in your life, perhaps a habit of worry, of self-criticism, or the endless stress of work. When you become aware of it, you can pause, breathe, and choose a different response. That very moment is a rebirth. Rebirth also reminds us that every experience, joyful or painful, carries meaning. Failure is not the end, it is only one turn in the wheel of learning. Loss is not final, it is an opening to discover new growth. Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh once said, "Each mindful step is a rebirth." This means that the moment you return to the present, you step out of the old cycle and into a new one. And you, what cycle in your life is waiting to be broken? A habit, an old belief, a relationship that has run its course? Perhaps releasing the old is the doorway to a new life, right within this very lifetime. Lesson 6. Noble speech, silence that listens. In today's busy America, people talk more than ever through phones, emails, texts, and meetings. Yet Buddhism offers a profound wisdom. Noble speech, or truthful words, are born from silence. In Zen tradition, there is a saying, "Silence is the most powerful speech." This does not mean you never speak. It means you know when to speak and when to stop. Silence is not avoidance. It is deep listening, so that when words do arise, they carry the power to heal. A study at the University of Texas found that people who practiced 1 hour of silence each day increased their creativity by up to 40%. When you stop letting the noise of the world dictate your mind becomes fertile ground for new ideas. Picture an American manager. In a tense meeting, colleagues argue, each trying to speak louder to win. Instead of diving into the fight, he sits quietly and listens. After a few minutes, he simply says, "I think we all want what is best for this project." The whole room falls silent. The silence before his words gave them the power to connect. Silence matters at home, too. A father in California shared that instead of scolding his child each time a mistake was made, he learned to sit still and breathe deeply. Then he gently asked, "Can you tell me what happened?" Because of this, his child felt heard rather than judged. Buddhism teaches that words can be flowers or arrows. Silence helps us choose words that bring peace. When you listen deeply, you understand the pain behind someone's words, and when you speak from that understanding, your words become medicine. Here is a practice you can try today. Spend 15 minutes sitting quietly, with no phone, no music, and no interruptions. Simply listen to your own breath and to the sounds around you. You will discover that silence is not empty, it is full of life. Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh once said, "When you are silent, you can hear the call of your own heart." In American society, where everyone is rushing, silence is one of the most precious gifts you can give to yourself and to others. And you, when was the last time you were truly silent? Not asleep, but awake, sitting still, simply listening. If it has been a long time, try it today. You may find a whole new world opening through silence. In Buddhist tradition, Noble speech is not simply about saying beautiful words. It is the art of choosing the right words at the right time, grounded in silence. When words come from impatience, they often carry thorns. But when they arise from silence and mindfulness, they are like flowers. There is a story from Boston about a high school teacher. In her class, one student often lost his temper and disrupted lessons. Instead of scolding him, she chose silence. She paused for a few seconds, took a deep breath. When the boy had calmed down, she gently asked, "Would you like to share what is making you upset?" That moment of silence opened a space for him to be heard. He eventually spoke about difficulties at home, and from then on, the relationship between teacher and student transformed completely. In the scriptures, the Buddha once said, "Before speaking, ask yourself, is it true? Does it bring peace? Is it necessary? If not, remain silent." These three questions are the compass for noble speech. In the United States, where social media encourages quick replies and instant reactions, this principle is more important than ever. Every tweet, every comment can spread to millions. A single negative word can wound deeply, while a kind word can lift someone in crisis. When you pause before pressing send, you are practicing noble speech. Psychology also confirms the power of silence. A study at Harvard found that leaders who listen more than they speak are often seen as more trustworthy, and their teams perform at higher levels. This shows that silence itself can be a form of leadership strength. Imagine spending an entire day in silence. You still go to work, still live your life, but you choose not to join meaningless chatter. You speak only when it is truly needed, and when it comes from the heart. You may notice you have more energy, feel less drained, and when your words do come, they carry greater weight. Here is a small challenge. Choose one weekend morning and spend several hours in silence. Turn off your phone, no television, no music. Simply sit in the garden, listen to the birds, the wind, and your own breath. Afterwards, write down your reflections. You will see that silence is not frightening. It is a refuge for the soul. Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh once wrote, "Speak in such a way that the other person suffers less. That is the practice of noble speech." And to do that, silence is the first step. So, would you dare to try a day of silence? Share your experience in the comments. Who knows, your silence may become an inspiration for others. Lesson 7. Impermanence and the 5 remembrances. In the Pali Canon, the Buddha taught the 5 remembrances. 1. I am certain to grow old. 2. I am certain to become ill. 3. I am certain to die. 4. Everything I love will change. 5. I can only carry the karma I create. At first, many Americans may see these teachings as dark or depressing, but in truth, they are the keys that unlock freedom. Because when we contemplate impermanence, we stop clinging to the illusion that anything can last forever, and it is in that moment that we truly learn to cherish each passing breath. During the COVID-19 pandemic, millions of Americans faced the fear of illness and death. Research from the CDC showed that those who practiced mindfulness of impermanence were about 25% more resilient in facing the fear of death compared to those who did not practice. They did not deny death, but through acceptance, they found peace even in the midst of crisis. One woman in New York shared her story. She lost both of her parents to COVID and felt she could never recover. But when she practiced the remembrance, all things are impermanent, she stopped fighting reality. Instead, she chose to remember her parents with gratitude and to pour her love into those still with her. Her pain slowly transformed into appreciation. Impermanence is not only about loss, it is also about opportunity. Every morning you wake up is different from the day before. A friend who drifted away may return. A wound of the heart can heal. When you see impermanence clearly, you do not fall into despair, you open to hope. In modern American life, where everything changes so quickly, jobs, technology, relationships, understanding impermanence is the key to balance. Instead of panicking when life shifts, you can breathe and remind yourself, this too shall pass. Like autumn in America, when leaves fall, it signals winter, but also prepares the way for spring. Here is a simple practice. Choose an object you love, a flower in your garden, or a favorite coffee cup. Sit quietly, look at it, and whisper, this will also change. When you accept that truth, you naturally treasure the present moment more deeply. Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh once said, because everything is impermanent, everything is possible. This is not a reason to fear, but a source of strength to renew your life. And you, has there ever been a difficult change in your life that opened a new door? If so, that was the gift of impermanence. In the experience of many Americans, impermanence can become a great teacher. A veteran who once served in Iraq shared that, after returning home, he was haunted by painful memories. He feared that those images would follow him forever. But through meditation on impermanence, he learned that emotions too are impermanent. Memories may return, but they do not stay. By learning to observe and let go, they gradually lost their weight. Impermanence helped him begin to heal from PTSD. The 5 remembrances also remind us, aging, illness, and death are not personal failures. They are the shared reality of all human beings. Accepting this makes us feel less alone. A cancer patient in Texas explained that by reflecting on impermanence, she no longer saw herself as an isolated victim, but as part of the human journey. She no longer feared death. Instead, she enjoyed each day with gratitude. On a social level, impermanence can shape how America faces crisis. During the pandemic, many communities found strength in reminding one another, this too shall pass. A simple phrase, yet it carried collective hope and helped them endure with resilience. In personal life, impermanence helps us release attachments. Have you ever clung to a relationship that had ended? Have you ever suffered from losing a job? Remember, that ending is the soil from which something new can grow. Like a forest after fire sprouting green shoots, loss becomes the ground for renewal. Here is a practice you can try. Before bed, close your eyes and reflect on the 5 remembrances. Silently repeat, I will grow old, I will become ill, I will die, everything I love will change, and I can only carry my karma. At first, these words may feel heavy, but over time, they bring lightness. Because you are no longer running away, you are meeting truth with equanimity. Psychological research from the University of Wisconsin shows that people who regularly reflect on death experience less existential anxiety and tend to live more meaningful lives. When we remember that we will die, we stop postponing and begin to live fully. Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh once said, because we know we will die, we truly begin to live. This is the essence of impermanence. So, can you share in the comments, has there been an event in your life that made you realize impermanence and changed the way you live? Your story may become the inspiration for someone else to discover peace. Lesson 8. Rebirth, the cycle of learning. In many cultures, rebirth is seen as a harsh loop, where human beings are trapped in birth, death, and reincarnation. But in Buddhism, rebirth is not a punishment, it is an opportunity to learn. Every lifetime, every experience is a classroom for the mind. In the Mahaparinirvana Sutra, the Buddha reminded us, birth and death are the greatest school for living beings. This means that instead of fearing rebirth, we can see it as a journey of growth. With this view, we no longer feel trapped in the cycle. We see ourselves as participants in an ongoing process of learning. If you look closely at life in the United States, you will notice rebirth in every moment. You do not have to wait for the next life. Even today, you experience cycles: sadness followed by joy, failure followed by rising again, loss followed by discovery. Each cycle teaches you something new. An artist in Los Angeles once shared that after his career collapsed, he felt as if he had died inside. But through meditation and creating again, he called it a spiritual rebirth. He did not have to wait for another life. Right in this lifetime, he experienced rebirth, from despair to hope, from loss to fresh creativity. Psychology speaks in the same way. Researchers point out that when people change harmful habits into healthy ones, they go through a kind of behavioral rebirth. It is like breaking out of an old cycle to begin a new one. A study at the University of California found that meditation helps people break negative loops in the brain, reducing stress by as much as 35%. This is clear evidence that rebirth can happen here and now. American culture also carries many stories of rebirth. One former prisoner, after leaving jail, became a social activist, helping young people avoid crime. He said, "I died once in prison. Now I live again with a different purpose." This is rebirth not only as a next life, but as a renewal of meaning within this very life. Here is a practice you can try. Notice a cycle in your life, perhaps a habit of worry, of self-criticism, or the endless stress of work. When you become aware of it, you can pause, breathe, and choose a different response. That very moment is a rebirth. Rebirth also reminds us that every experience, joyful or painful, carries meaning. Failure is not the end, it is only one turn in the wheel of learning. Loss is not final, it is an opening to discover new growth. Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh once said, "Each mindful step is a rebirth." This means that the moment you return to the present, you step out of the old cycle and into a new one. And you, what cycle in your life is waiting to be broken? A habit, an old belief, a relationship that has run its course? Perhaps releasing the old is the doorway to a new life, right within this very lifetime. In Buddhism, rebirth is often described as the Dharma wheel turning endlessly. Yet this wheel does not only turn in the realms of birth and death, it also turns in every thought, every daily habit. If you observe closely, you will notice yourself repeating the same reactions: anger when criticized, sadness when ignored, stress when work piles up. This, too, is samsara, the cycle of the mind. The good news is, we can transform that cycle. A father in Chicago admitted that he often yelled at his children whenever he felt pressure at work. But through meditation, he became aware of the loop: stress to anger to shouting to regret. Once he saw it clearly, he paused, took a deep breath, and chose silence instead of yelling. Slowly, the loop broke. He was no longer a victim of psychological samsara, he became a student, learning from it. In American culture, the idea of spiritual rebirth is often spoken of. People who overcome addiction, depression, or personal crises frequently say, "It feels like I was born again." This is not far from Buddhism. Rebirth is not only about the next life. It happens in the very moment you let go of the old and step into the new. Neuroscience shows that the brain has the ability to rewire itself. This is called neuroplasticity. When you practice mindfulness, the brain forms new pathways that allow you to escape old loops. This is scientific proof that psychological samsara can be transformed. You do not need to remain trapped in negative cycles forever. Consider another example. A woman in Seattle was caught in the cycle of anxiety. Each morning, she woke up with the same question: what will go wrong today? And that very thought turned into her reality. But when she learned meditation, she began to observe the question as just another familiar loop. Each time it appeared, she breathed and whispered, "This is only a loop, not the truth." After a few months, her anxiety significantly decreased. This was a true rebirth within her own mind. Samsara also teaches us compassion. When we see someone trapped in a loop, a person struggling with alcohol, a hot-tempered friend, or even an ambitious politician, we no longer only criticize. We understand they are caught in the wheel of karma. Instead of condemnation, we can plant wholesome seeds that may help them step into a new cycle. Here is a practice you can try. Write down one negative loop in your own life. For example, I feel stressed. Do I overeat? Do I feel guilty? Do I feel more stressed? Then, add one new step into the cycle. Stress to deep breath to 5-minute walk. By inserting this new link, the cycle changes. This is how samsara can be broken in daily life. Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh once said, "With just one mindful breath, you can begin a new life." This means that rebirth is not distant, it is available in the present moment. So, ask yourself, what cycle in your life is ready to be changed? And if you stepped into a new loop, how would your life be different? Share in the comments. Your story may become the inspiration for someone else's rebirth. Lesson 9. The Cosmic Mirror. Reflections of the Inner Mind. In Tibetan Buddhist tradition, there is a beautiful image. The universe is like a vast mirror. Everything you see outside is actually a reflection of the mind within. When your mind is calm, the world seems to settle as well. When your mind is filled with anger, the universe feels colored with tension. At first, this may sound mystical, but modern science is beginning to agree. Research in cognitive psychology shows that the brain does not simply record reality, it paints it according to the state of the mind. If you are stressed, you are more likely to interpret events negatively. If you are peaceful, you more easily notice opportunities and beauty around you. The universe has not changed, but the way you perceive it has, and that is the mirror at work. Imagine an American living in New York City. During rush hour, the streets are jammed with cars, horns blaring. If his mind is anxious, the scene feels like hell. But if he has just meditated, breathing deeply, he may see the same scene as a vibrant flow of life. The reality is the same, yet the experience is completely different. One American scientist once shared, in his lab, when he changed his own attitude, the way he viewed his data also shifted. When he was frustrated, every result looked like failure. But when he was calm and curious, the very same data opened doors to new discovery. This is clear evidence that our mind reflects itself onto reality. In daily life, you can see this in relationships. A close friend makes a joke. If your mind is unsettled, you may hear it as criticism, but if your mind is relaxed, you hear it as playful care. The friend has not changed, the mirror in your mind has. Buddhism teaches, if you wish to change the world, first change the mirror within. If the mirror is dusty, filled with anger, greed, or delusion, the reflection will be distorted. But if you clean the mirror with mindfulness, compassion, and wisdom, the world you see becomes clearer and brighter. Here is a simple practice. Each morning, sit quietly for 5 minutes and imagine your mind as a mirror. Observe whether it feels cloudy or clear. If it is cloudy, breathe and whisper to yourself, "I wipe the mirror with my breath." Each time you do this, you are training your mind to reflect the world more clearly. Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh once said, "When there is peace within us, there is peace in the world." This is not only a metaphor, it is a psychological truth. When you are at peace, you reflect peace outward. Your loved ones, your colleagues, and even your community can feel it. Have you ever experienced this yourself? Perhaps on a bad day, it felt as though everything was against you. But on a calm day, even in hardship, you still felt steady. This is the lesson of the cosmic mirror. The outer world is a reflection of the inner mind. In Tibetan tradition, masters often use the image of the mirror not only for teaching, but also for practice. A mirror holds onto nothing. When a flower passes by, the mirror reflects the flower. When a dark cloud passes by, the mirror reflects the cloud. But when both flower and cloud are gone, the mirror remains clear, unstained. This is the nature of a pure mind. When we do not understand this, we let emotions carve themselves into us. A single criticism can haunt us for days, as if it were etched into glass. But in truth, the mirror's nature is not to retain. If we know how to let go, we see that criticism is nothing more than a passing cloud. Modern science calls this the lens effect. The brain magnifies or distorts reality according to the state of mind. Someone struggling with depression tends to see life through a dark lens, making everything seem worse. Mindfulness meditation helps clean that lens, allowing us to see reality more clearly. One American scientist working in quantum physics once said, "Observation is not just recording, it also shapes reality." This insight reminds many of the Buddha's teaching. The mind is the root of all phenomena. When you observe with anger, the world appears full of conflict. When you observe with compassion, the world opens with opportunities for connection. Take the example of an American family. A child breaks a glass. If the parents are tired, they may shout, seeing it as proof of carelessness. But if the parents are calm, they might smile, teach the child how to clean up, and turn the accident into a lesson. The broken glass is the same, but the reflection is different, because the parents' minds are different. Practicing with the mirror is also a chance to reflect inward. When you notice yourself constantly blaming, ask, "What dust is on my mirror?" Perhaps it is stress, fear, or impatience. Recognizing the dust is the first step in cleaning it. Here is a small practice. Each night before sleep, close your eyes and picture your mind as a mirror. Observe the images of the day, joy, sadness, anger, then whisper silently, "All are reflections, the mirror remains clear." This practice prevents you from being trapped in emotions. Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh once said, "When we change the way we look at things, the world we live in also changes." This is the essence of the cosmic mirror. You can try this right now. Look at a difficulty in your life and ask, "What is it reflecting in my mind?" If I wiped the mirror with mindfulness and compassion, how would this image appear differently? Share in the comments. Have you ever experienced a moment when the world seemed to change simply because your mind changed? Your story may help others discover the power of their own hearts. Lesson 10. Right effort, acting without clinging. In the Noble Eightfold Path, the 8 steps the Buddha taught as the way to liberation, there is an essential element called right effort. In America, many people are familiar with the phrase, "work hard," meaning push yourself relentlessly to achieve success. But Buddhism invites us to look deeper. Not every effort leads to freedom. Right effort does not mean forcing yourself into exhaustion. It means acting with balance. It is energy that comes from wisdom, not from fear or ambition. Like a gardener, he cannot pull on a tree to make it grow faster, but he can care for the soil, the water, the sunlight. The tree will grow naturally, in its own time. In modern American culture, burnout has become a serious issue. A Gallup survey found that 76% of American employees experience burnout at least once in their careers. But by applying the spirit of right effort, people learn to work without clinging to results, without letting their jobs define their entire worth. This does not make them lazy. It helps them work more sustainably and with greater happiness. Imagine an employee in Silicon Valley. He works at a tech company, putting in 12 to 14 hours a day. His goal is to create the perfect product to earn promotion. But after years, he is drained, sleepless, and even losing his sense of meaning. When he came to meditation, he learned that right effort means giving his best in the present moment without tying his value to success or failure. He continued working, but with a lighter heart. The result? Not only did his performance improve, he also found peace within himself. Research from Gallup shows that people who maintain balance between work and personal life report happiness levels about 30% higher than those who do not. This is the strength of right effort. You are no longer caught in the whirlpool of ambition, but instead use your energy wisely. In Buddhism, right effort is described in 4 steps. 1. Prevent unwholesome states of mind from arising. 2. Let go of unwholesome states that have already arisen. 3. Nurture wholesome states that have not yet arisen. 4. Strengthen wholesome states that are already present. This means effort is not only directed outward, but first inward toward the mind. If you work constantly with stress and fear, Even if you achieve your goals, you will not be happy. But if you nurture peace while you work, every action itself becomes a form of practice. Consider a simple example: a mother in America raising 3 young children while working full-time. In the past, she always blamed herself for not doing enough, not cooking perfect meals, not giving enough time to her kids, not excelling at the office. But when she learned about right effort, she shifted her view. Instead of striving for perfect standards, she focused on each action with love. A simple meal, cooked with peace, became a gift for her family. A day at work without stress became a genuine contribution. She no longer felt drained, she was energized. Here is a practice you can try. Write down the 3 most important tasks you will do today. As you carry them out, remind yourself, I give my best, but I do not cling to the result. Then, take a deep breath and let go. Practice this, and you will feel freer, and paradoxically, your results often improve. Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh once taught, do not try to become anything, just breathe and walk. Right effort is just like this, working not to prove yourself, but to nourish life. Have you ever experienced the difference between working in exhaustion and practicing right effort? If so, share in the comments. Your story may help others reflect on their own lives. To understand right effort more deeply, let us compare it with the way many Americans approach success. Modern society teaches that personal value is tied to achievements, a high salary, a beautiful home, recognition. As a result, many people work tirelessly, not out of love for their work, but out of fear of falling behind. The outcome is a cycle of stress, burnout, and emptiness. Buddhism invites us to shift this perspective. Right effort means acting with mindfulness. It means that every step, every task, is done with presence. When you wash the dishes, you know you are washing the dishes. When you work, you know you are working. This simple awareness makes action lighter, no longer a burden. Consider an example. A software engineer in Seattle once admitted he worked like a machine. Day after day, he wrote code, fixed bugs, and chased deadlines. But when he learned mindfulness, he began bringing his breath into his work. Each time he touched the keyboard, he took a slow breath and smiled. To his surprise, he felt less stressed, more creative, and his colleagues noticed the positive energy he radiated. This is right effort in modern life. In Buddhist tradition, right effort is not only about achieving efficiency, it is about transforming the mind. When you work with mindfulness, you do not create unwholesome karma from anger, worry, or greed. Instead, you plant wholesome seeds through awareness and compassion. Here is a helpful practice. Before starting your workday, take one mindful breath. Place your hand on your heart and silently remind yourself, today I will work with peace, without clinging. This small habit becomes the foundation for the entire day. In American society, many companies have begun adopting mindful working at places like Google, Intel, and Aetna. Surveys show that employees who join meditation programs report greater happiness, stronger engagement, and significantly less stress. This proves that right effort is not just philosophy, it is practical and effective. Remember, acting without clinging does not mean being irresponsible. On the contrary, you give your best, but you do not let the results bind you. Like a farmer who plants seeds, tends the soil, and waters with care, he cannot force the harvest to arrive early. His joy is in the process of caring, not only in the final crop. Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh once taught, when you walk, do not think of arriving. Walk simply to enjoy each step. This is the most beautiful image of right effort, working not to chase something far away, but to live fully in each moment of action. So, are you ready to bring right effort into your own life? Share in the comments one thing you will do wholeheartedly, but without clinging to the result. Who knows, this small practice may open the door to great freedom. Lesson 11. The Mandala Principle. Order within chaos. In Tibetan Buddhist tradition, the mandala is a sacred symbol, a cosmic circle where everything is arranged in perfect order around a center. When you look at a mandala, you see countless intricate details, yet all of them come together in harmony, forming a balanced whole. A mandala is not only a work of art, it is also a tool for practice. When Tibetan monks patiently place each grain of sand to create a mandala, they do not do it for the final image, but for the awakening found in every moment of the process. And when the mandala is complete, they often sweep it away to remind us that order and chaos are simply two faces of impermanence. In modern American life, we are surrounded by chaos. Endless workloads, noisy news, the constant flood of social media. It can feel like everything is scattered, without order. Yet the lesson of the mandala is this: even within chaos, there is always a still center to be found. One American painter shared that when she created mandalas, she felt as though her mind was being rearranged. At first, thoughts rushed in wildly, but stroke by stroke, circle by circle, she entered a state of deep focus. She called it meditation through color. Science agrees. Studies in art therapy show that drawing mandalas can reduce stress by up to 40%, helping the brain return to balance. In the scriptures, the mandala also symbolizes the operation of the universe. Every phenomenon has its place, and nothing is wasted. This perspective can change the way we face difficulty. Instead of seeing chaos as an enemy, we can recognize it as part of a larger order that we may not yet see. Picture a father in New York who suddenly loses his job. His family feels unstable. He feels as if his world is collapsing, but through meditation, he imagines life as a mandala being woven. The job loss is only one detail, painful in the moment, yet still part of a bigger design. Months later, he finds a new position that suits him better, and the loss becomes the very turning point that deepens his life. The mandala reminds us, chaos does not destroy order, it is part of the process. If we can find the center within ourselves, the place of peace that does not change, then we can stand steady in any storm. Here is a practice you can try. Sit down with paper and colored pens. Draw a circle. Inside it, fill with shapes and colors as you wish. As you draw, breathe slowly, treating each line as a step in meditation. Do not worry about the outcome. Simply stay present. When finished, look again and notice, even in the chaos of colors, a unique order has emerged. The mandala does not exist only in temples or Tibetan art. It also appears in modern American culture, from art therapy classes and yoga studios to best-selling adult coloring books. When Americans sit down with colored pencils and focus on filling in a mandala, they are not just entertaining themselves, they are guiding the mind back to its center, each stroke like a meditative breath. A study at Drexel University found that drawing or coloring a mandala significantly reduces stress and increases focus. In those moments, the brain enters a state of flow where worries dissolve and the person becomes fully absorbed in the activity. This explains why so many office workers in New York or San Francisco choose to color mandalas during their lunch breaks to recharge. The mandala can also serve as a metaphor for organizing life. An American manager once shared that his work used to feel chaotic, overlapping meetings, endless emails, a scattered mind. But when he learned about mandalas, he began to design his schedule like a circle, placing the most important tasks in the center and allowing less urgent matters to orbit around them. This approach brought him a sense of order, instead of feeling trapped in disorder. In Buddhist tradition, the center of the mandala represents enlightenment. The closer you move to the center, the simpler and quieter it becomes. The farther outward you go, the more complex the patterns. This reminds us that if we want peace, we must return to the center, the breath, the present moment. A mother in Texas applied this principle in her family life. She once felt overwhelmed by responsibilities, raising children, working, managing finances, handling household chores. Everything felt chaotic, like an unfinished mandala. But when she began to place love and presence at the center, everything else became outer circles revolving around it. She realized that as long as she stayed rooted in the center, she could face the chaos without losing her peace. In Tibetan art, mandalas are often destroyed soon after completion. This act carries profound meaning. Even in perfect order, impermanence is present. For Americans accustomed to a holding-on mentality, this teaching is especially important. It reminds us that while we can create order, we must not cling to it. Treasure the process, not just the result. Here is a practice you can try. Take a sheet of paper and draw a mandala freely. When it is complete, do not keep it. Tear it up or fold it and release it into the wind. This simple act of letting go feels liberating. You learn to enjoy the creative journey instead of clinging to the outcome. Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh once taught, "Nothing lasts forever, not even order. But if we know how to return to the center, we will never be lost." The mandala is the map for that journey. The mandala is not only a symbol, it is a reminder that order and chaos always exist side by side. In American life, you can see this clearly. A city like Los Angeles can be noisy, crowded, and full of pressure. Yet within it, there are quiet parks, meditation spaces, and people who find their center even in the rush of daily life. When we understand the principle of the mandala, we learn not to let outer chaos decide the state of our inner mind. Just as when you look at a mandala, the outer layers are full of intricate, swirling patterns, but the center remains still. If you stay connected to that center, you can walk through chaos without being swept away. A Silicon Valley engineer once shared that his life felt like a storm, deadlines, pressure, and constant technological change. But when he began drawing a mandala each night, he discovered what he called an inner space. Each circle he drew reminded him that no matter how the outer world spun, there was still a quiet center within. This small habit helped him reduce stress and become more creative in his work. The mandala also carries a lesson about harmony. When many people create one mandala together, they must cooperate, yield, and listen to one another. This is a beautiful image of America's diverse communities, many colors, many viewpoints, yet capable of forming a harmonious circle if the shared center is respect and compassion. Social science confirms this truth. Research shows that when groups engage in creative activities together, such as drawing a mandala, levels of trust and cooperation rise significantly. This reveals that order can be cultivated not only within individuals, but also within communities. Here is a practice you can try with family or friends. Create a large mandala together. Let each person take responsibility for one part. Do not argue about right or wrong, just allow creativity to flow. When it is finished, you will feel a deep connection, a mandala that no one could have created alone. In art, mandalas are often made and then destroyed. In life, this teaches us to appreciate without clinging. You may build a plan, a career, or a family. But remember, everything is impermanent. If you keep your mind rooted in the center, you will not collapse when the outer circles change. Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh once said, "Find your own still center, and from there you can embrace the whole world." The mandala is the map that shows us how. So, what is your center? Is it your breath, your love, or your faith in the spiritual path? Share in the comments, so together we can explore the inner mandalas of each person. Lesson 12. Compassion, the light of connection. In Buddhism, compassion is not pity. It is the ability to see the suffering of others and to genuinely wish to ease that suffering. It is the light that connects human beings to one another beyond boundaries of culture, race, or belief. On the bodhisattva path, compassion is considered the heart of every action. A bodhisattva does not seek liberation only for themselves, but vows to help all beings be free from suffering. This is a lofty ideal, yet also deeply practical in today's American society, where so many feel lonely, isolated, and in need of a compassionate hand. A study at Emory University found that when people practiced loving-kindness meditation, also known as metta meditation, their cardiovascular health improved and their sense of social connection increased. Compassion is not only a spiritual philosophy, it is also a healing medicine for the heart. Picture a nurse in New York during the pandemic. Every day she witnessed patients in pain, families in grief. If she saw herself only as doing a job, she would have burned out quickly. But when she practiced compassion, seeing each patient as if they were her own parent, sibling, or child, her energy was no longer a burden. It became a gift of service. Compassion was what carried her through those devastating months. In American society, compassion also appears in social movements. From groups supporting the homeless to organizations protecting the environment, all are fueled by a heart that wishes to ease suffering for others and for the planet itself. Compassion is not just a feeling, it is a force for action. Yet, many mistake compassion for weakness. In truth, compassion requires great courage. One activist in California was criticized and even threatened for defending the rights of the vulnerable. But she said, "I continue because I feel their suffering as my own." That is the strength of compassion, resilient, yet free of hatred. Here is a small practice. Sit quietly, breathe deeply, and silently repeat, "May I be at peace. May my loved ones be at peace. May all beings be at peace." When you send compassion outward, you are not only changing others, you are healing yourself. Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh once said, "Compassion is the ability to understand the suffering of another. When you truly understand, you no longer wish to harm, you only wish to help." And when American society, so often divided, learns to practice compassion, barriers begin to dissolve. Have you ever experienced a moment when compassion changed a situation? Perhaps when you stopped to listen instead of argue, or when you extended a hand to a stranger. Share your story because it may inspire someone else to rediscover the light of compassion in their own life. Compassion does not only reach outward, it begins within ourselves. In America, many people live under the pressure of perfection, having to succeed, having to look good, having to be strong. They easily fall into a cycle of self-blame and self-criticism. But Buddhism reminds us, to truly love others, we must first learn to love ourselves. A woman in Boston once shared that she hated herself for gaining weight after childbirth. Every day, she looked in the mirror and felt ashamed. But during a meditation retreat, she learned the practice of self-compassion. She began whispering to herself, "I deserve love, even when I am not perfect." Slowly, she felt lighter, less pressured, and this self-compassion actually helped her care for her health better. Science confirms this truth. A study at the University of Texas found that people who practice self-compassion suffer less from depression and anxiety and recover more quickly after failure. This proves that compassion does not make us weak, it makes us stronger. In relationships, compassion is the bridge that holds them together. A couple in California often argued. They went to see a Zen teacher who gave them a simple practice. Before speaking, take 3 deep breaths and ask yourself, is this word coming from compassion? Within weeks, the atmosphere in their home transformed. They still disagreed, but their words no longer felt like arrows. They became bridges reconnecting their hearts. In American social movements, compassion is also a powerful force. Many environmental groups act not only for nature itself, but out of compassion for future generations. When you plant a tree, reduce plastic waste, or save energy, you are practicing compassion not only for people today, but also for those yet to be born. Here is a practice you can apply. Choose one small action each day to plant a seed of compassion. It may be sending an encouraging message, helping a colleague, or simply smiling at a stranger. Compassion does not have to be grand. It is the light that is kindled through the smallest gestures. Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh once said, "A compassionate smile can save a life." In a country as busy and pressured as America, Even such a simple act can create a powerful ripple effect. So think back. When was the last time someone treated you with compassion? Did it change your mood, even your whole day? And are you ready to pass on that compassion to someone else today? Compassion also holds the power to transform communities and American society as a whole. When individuals practice compassion, that energy spreads outward, creating movements of collective healing. For example, in Portland, a group of young people created Café Compassion, a place where anyone could come, drink tea, share their struggles, and receive non-judgmental listening. They did not solve every problem, but simply by listening with compassion, they helped many people overcome loneliness. In the fight for equality, compassion has also been the guiding thread. Instead of answering hatred with hatred, many social leaders chose the path of non-violence, grounding their actions in compassion. Martin Luther King Jr. once said, "Only love can turn an enemy into a friend." This is also the spirit of Buddhist compassion, not destroying with force, but transforming through understanding and love. Neuroscience today shows that when people witness or practice an act of compassion, the brain releases oxytocin, the bonding chemical. This not only creates feelings of happiness, but also strengthens the immune system. In other words, compassion is not only good for society, it nourishes personal health as well. In education, compassion is finding its place too. Some schools in California have introduced loving-kindness meditation into their curriculum. Students practice sending blessings to themselves and their classmates. The results: bullying decreased, cooperation increased. This is proof that when children are nurtured with compassion, the society of the future will also be healthier. Here is a practice you can try right now. Think of a friend who is struggling. Close your eyes, breathe deeply, and silently repeat, "May you be at peace. May you be healthy. May you be free from suffering." Even if they are not physically near, your compassionate energy still reaches out, and you yourself will feel lighter. Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh once said, "Compassion is the light that can connect us in the dark." As American society faces crises from climate change and pandemics to political division, that light is more essential than ever. So, are you ready to let compassion become the compass of your life? Try choosing one compassionate action each day, no matter how small. And if you are willing, share in the comments. What seed of compassion did you plant today? Your answer may inspire thousands of others to do the same. Lesson 13. Trusting the flow, integration and practice. Throughout this journey, we have explored many teachings: letting go, karma, emptiness, interdependence, non-self, right speech, impermanence, rebirth, the cosmic mirror, right effort, the mandala, and compassion. All of them converge into one essential truth: learning to trust the flow of life. Americans are often taught to control time, career, finances, even emotions. But Buddhism reminds us that life is not something to control, it is a river to enter. When we fight against the current, we become exhausted. When we learn to trust, we discover freedom. Vipassana meditation is a tool for training that trust. Sitting quietly, observing the breath, you see everything rise and fall. The breath comes and goes, thoughts appear and dissolve, emotions swell and fade. You realize you do not need to control everything. The natural flow already carries its own wisdom. A study at MIT found that Vipassana meditation increases adaptability to change by 35%. This means that instead of panicking when life shifts, you can breathe, observe, and adjust with flexibility. This is a priceless skill in modern American society, where change happens daily. Imagine a man in Chicago who loses his job after 20 years. At first, he feels hopeless, as though life has ended. But during a meditation retreat, he learns to sit with fear instead of running from it. Each breath shows him, losing a job is not the end, but the beginning of something new. Months later, he opens a small shop, lives more simply, and finds more peace than ever before. This is the power of trusting the flow. Trusting the flow does not mean giving up. It means you still act, but you act from trust, not from fear. Like rowing a boat, you still use the oars, but you do not fight the current. You skillfully move with it. Here is a simple practice. Whenever you face difficulty, close your eyes, place a hand on your heart, and whisper, "I trust the flow." Repeat it a few times, and you will feel lighter. Often, solutions appear more clearly afterward. Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh once said, "Let the river carry you. Do not try to carry the whole river on your shoulders." Trust does not take away your freedom, it frees you from the burden of control. Trusting the flow is not about sitting still and waiting for luck. It is the art of living with awareness and flexibility. When you accept that everything changes, you become lighter, and this very lightness makes you wiser in action. A professor in California once shared that he used to be stressed, trying to control his students, his curriculum, and even colleagues' feedback. But through Vipassana meditation, he realized that total control was an illusion. He began to let go and focus on planting seeds, teaching with sincerity. As a result, his students loved the lessons more, and he himself felt more at peace. For many Americans, trusting the flow has helped them recover after crisis. A woman in Florida lost her home in a hurricane. At first, she felt her life was destroyed, but through a community meditation group, she learned to accept loss as part of the river. She said, "I cannot stop the storm, but I can learn to keep walking." With that support, she rebuilt her life, stronger than before. Science also confirms this. A Harvard study found that people who practice mindfulness meditation show 30% greater resilience. When facing change, they do not sink. They rise, like leaves floating on the river. In competitive American culture, trusting the flow also frees us from the pressure of comparison. You do not need to race with your neighbor, your colleague, or some perfect version of yourself. You only need to flow with your own river. Just as the Mississippi is not the Colorado, each river has its own beauty and journey. Here is a practice. At the end of the day, write down 3 things that happened which you could not control. Next to each one, add the phrase, "I let it flow." This trains you to release unnecessary burdens and save your energy for what truly matters. Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh once taught, "Letting go does not mean abandoning. Letting go means allowing things to be natural." When you live this way, you stop spinning in the cycle of control and instead find freedom in every moment. So, are you ready to live one day trusting the flow? Not over-planning, not forcing, just breathing, observing, and letting life lead the way. Trusting the flow also means knowing when to act and when to pause. In America's busy culture, many believe that doing more is always better. Yet sometimes it is the pause that opens the way forward. An athlete in Colorado once trained himself into a serious injury. He believed that only by pushing twice as hard could he succeed. But when he could no longer continue, he was forced to rest. During that time, he discovered meditation and yoga. He realized that rest was not failure, it was part of the flow. When he returned to competition, he carried a new attitude: give his best, but without forcing. In the scriptures, the Buddha taught that the middle way is the key steering clear of both indulgence and extreme austerity. Trusting the flow is living the middle way, acting with awareness, not driven by greed or by fear. A businessman in San Francisco shared that when his company collapsed, he felt as if he had been swept away in a flood. But instead of thrashing against it, he chose to trust the flow. He spent time meditating, walking in nature, and waiting until his mind was clear before starting again. Eventually, he founded a smaller business with less pressure but far more joy. He said, "I learned that failure is only a bend in the river, not the end." Neuroscience also affirms this. When people release the need to control, the regions of the brain tied to creativity become more active. That is why many great ideas arise while walking, showering, or simply relaxing. When you trust the flow, the mind opens, and deeper wisdom has a chance to speak. Here is a practice you can try. In a difficult situation, instead of rushing to find a solution, take 5 minutes to breathe and observe. See the challenge as a swirling eddy in the river. When the waters settle, the path often appears. This is a direct way to apply trust in the flow. Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh once emphasized, "When you breathe in and let go, you are sending yourself into the arms of life." This trust does not make you passive. It gives you freedom, clarity, and courage to move forward. So, after all these lessons, what you carry with you is not just knowledge, but an invitation. Try living one day, 1 week, or even 1 month with the spirit of trusting the flow. And share in the comments, which of the 12 lessons do you want to apply today to let go and to find peace? We have spoken about letting go as a source of strength. Now, let us look deeper at how letting go works in the busy reality of American life. In a culture that prizes individualism, many Americans believe that holding on tightly is a sign of responsibility. Parents cling to their children out of fear they may lose their way. Business leaders cling to their work out of fear of losing their status. Young people cling to their online image out of fear of being forgotten. Yet the paradox is this: the tighter they hold, the more exhausted they become. A study at Stanford University found that people who tend to let go of what they cannot control are less likely to suffer from chronic stress and report life satisfaction that is 25% higher. This means letting go is not only a spiritual teaching, it is also a life skill. Picture a woman in New Jersey who balances a full-time job, caring for her elderly parents and guiding her children through school. She often felt drained because she wanted everything to be perfect. But when she began to practice meditation on letting go, she realized she could not control everything. She chose instead to focus on being fully present for her parents and children, rather than forcing perfection. Gradually, she felt lighter, and her family became happier too. Even in American pop culture, we see the spirit of letting go. The Beatles' song "Let It Be" still echoes like a gentle reminder, let things be as they are. It is a modern version of Buddhist wisdom. Letting go does not mean abandoning, but accepting impermanence. Here is a practice you can try today. Write down one thing you are trying to control. Perhaps it is the outcome of your work, the opinions of others, or the future of your children. Then ask yourself, is this truly within my control? If the answer is no, close your eyes, breathe out, and silently repeat, "I let it go." Practicing this each day, you will feel the weight in your heart grow lighter. Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh once said, "Letting go is not losing, letting go is freedom." When Americans learn this, they can find balance between responsibility and freedom, living without the exhaustion of carrying the whole world, and instead resting peacefully in what is truly possible. So, share in the comments, what is the hardest thing for you to let go of? Perhaps it is a person, a memory, or a dream unfulfilled. Let us learn together how to let go and how to find peace. In the previous lesson, we saw karma as an ongoing dialogue with the universe. Now, let us look deeper at how karma operates in modern American life, where people face pressure in careers, health, and relationships. In America, many believe karma is punishment, but Buddhism reminds us that karma is simply cause and effect. Plant a seed, reap the fruit. It is not about absolute morality, but the natural law of actions and their consequences. When you plant thoughts, words, and actions with compassion, you generate positive energy not only for yourself, but for your community as well. A doctor in Minnesota shared that he used to feel stressed and impatient with difficult patients. But after learning about karma and practicing compassion, he began to see each patient as an opportunity to plant a wholesome seed. Instead of responding with irritation, he chose to listen. The result: Patients felt more respected, and he himself felt less drained. This is karma in healthcare. A kind word can transform the energy of an entire visit. Science agrees. A study at the University of Michigan found that when doctors show empathy, patients heal faster and develop greater trust in their treatment. This means karma is not just spiritual, it has real biological and psychological effects. In American workplaces, karma can be seen in cooperation. An employee in New York admitted that he used to compete harshly and take credit for others' work. But after practicing compassion and understanding karma, he began to support his colleagues instead. The unexpected result: he gained trust, earned a promotion, and built a stronger career. This proves that helping others succeed is also planting good karma for yourself. Here is a practice you can try. Each morning, before beginning your work, silently repeat, "Today, I will plant a seed of compassion." That seed might be a smile, a thank you, or a small helpful act. At the end of the day, write down what you did. With steady practice, you will see positive karma clearly reflected in your relationships. On a larger scale, karma also operates collectively. When an American community treats one another with compassion, they create a culture of support. When a community is filled with criticism, envy, or division, that negative energy comes back to them. This is why social movements rooted in compassion spread so powerfully they align with the natural law of cause and effect. Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh once said, "A kind word can travel the whole world." In the age of the internet, this is even truer. A single compassionate message online can reach millions of Americans within hours. Have you ever experienced karma within a single day? Perhaps you smiled at someone, and unexpectedly they offered you a new opportunity. Share your story in the comments, because your experience might help others see that planting good seeds truly brings good fruits. Emptiness may sound at first like a cold, hollow void, but in Buddhist teaching, emptiness does not mean nothingness. It means that nothing exists on its own. Everything arises in connection, depending on one another. And when we realize this, we discover a profound freedom. In American workplaces, many people feel trapped inside a box. I am this title, I am that role. A lawyer in Washington, D.C., once shared that he always identified himself with his professional status. But after a major life challenge, he realized he was not only a lawyer, he was also a father, a son, a friend, a member of a community. Seeing emptiness freed him from the pressure of maintaining a fixed image. He found joy again in volunteering and teaching for free. Research at Stanford University shows that meditation on emptiness can reduce anxiety by 35%. The reason is clear. When we loosen our grip on a rigid sense of self, we are no longer haunted by the need to defend ourselves all the time. We become more flexible, creative, and at ease. An artist in Los Angeles once faced a deep creative block. She felt as if all her ideas had dried up. But when she learned to meditate on emptiness, she realized that creativity was not hers. To own it was a flow that came through her from the universe. By letting go of ego, ideas began to pour out naturally. She said, "I stopped trying to be a great artist. I simply allowed the art to move through me." In personal life, emptiness also opens freedom in relationships. Many Americans suffer because they think, he must be this way, she must be that way. But when we see that people are always changing, shaped by family, society, and circumstance, we stop clinging and start listening more deeply. A mother in Texas once admitted that she felt constant disappointment because her teenage daughter would not listen. But when she learned about emptiness, she realized her daughter was not only my child, she was her own person, influenced by friends, school, even social media. Letting go of the thought, she must be what I want, allowed her to listen and walk beside her daughter instead of forcing her. Their relationship began to heal. Here is a simple practice. When you feel stuck, close your eyes and whisper, "This is not fixed." It could be anxiety, anger, or sadness. Remembering that none of it is permanent will help you feel lighter. Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh once taught, "Nothing exists by itself, everything exists in interbeing." This is not only philosophy, it is a key to freedom in the pressure-filled society of America. When you realize you are not alone, life suddenly feels wider, more open. So, have you ever experienced a moment of emptiness? Maybe when you looked at the vast sky and felt small, yet connected to everything. Share your story because it may inspire others to discover freedom in the midst of everyday life. Dependent origination teaches that nothing exists independently. Everything arises in connection, relying on one another to appear. In the Agama Sutras, the Buddha said, "When this is, that island, when this is not, that is not." This is not only an ancient philosophy, it is a truth unfolding right now in modern American life. In American society, the web of interconnection is most visible through technology. Each post on social media can reach millions of people. A single positive message can spread hope, while one piece of false news can create chaos. This shows that every individual action sets off a chain reaction, just as dependent origination reminds us. For example, in 2020 during the pandemic, a doctor in Seattle uploaded a short video teaching a breathing technique to ease anxiety. Within days, millions of Americans watched and followed along. One small act helped countless people feel less afraid. This is dependent origination in action, one seed connecting with thousands of other conditions, producing collective healing energy. Within families, dependent origination reminds us that one person's happiness or suffering affects everyone. A father who brings stress home from work often fills the household with heaviness. But when he learns to sit, breathe, and release, the entire family benefits from his peace. Dependent origination is not an abstract idea. It is alive in each meal shared, in every glance exchanged. In the environment, interconnection becomes undeniable. A single plastic bottle tossed into the ocean off California might drift all the way to Asia. Smoke from wildfires in Oregon can reach the skies of New York. Human beings and nature are woven together in a vast mandala. When we harm the environment, we are in fact harming ourselves. Science confirms this truth. Climate research shows that changes in one region always trigger consequences across the globe. No country, no individual can truly stand apart. This is modern evidence of the Buddha's teaching on dependent origination. Here is a practice you can try. Throughout one day, notice how your actions ripple outward. When you buy a cup of coffee, think of the farmers, the transport workers, and the barista. When you flip a light switch, remember those working in the power plants. Seeing these connections naturally awakens gratitude and responsibility. Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh often called this interbeing. It means we can never be just ourselves, we are always the sum of countless conditions. When an American learns to see life this way, personal pressures feel lighter, and responsibility for community and planet becomes more natural. Have you ever experienced a moment of dependent origination? Maybe when one kind word changed your entire day, or when one small action of yours sparked a smile in someone else. Share your story because it can help us all see more clearly the invisible yet unbreakable web that holds us together. Non-self is one of the core teachings of Buddhism, yet it is also one of the hardest ideas for many Americans to grasp. When they hear non-self, they often ask, if there is no self, then who am I? But the truth is, non-self does not deny existence. It frees us from the prison of a rigid identity. In modern psychology, researchers call this the flexible self. When we stop fully identifying with roles, titles, or images, we recover more easily from failures and adapt to change. This is especially important in American society, where success is often measured by status and wealth. A director in New York once shared that after his company collapsed, he fell into depression because he believed, "I am the company." But when he attended a meditation retreat, he realized that the company was only one small part of his life, not the whole. By letting go of the illusion of a fixed self, he found joy in writing books and mentoring young people. He was no longer a failed CEO, but a human being continuing to live. Science supports this as well. A study at Yale University showed that when people reflect on non-self, levels of depression drop by up to 30%. The reason is clear. They become less attached to the story of, "I must be this way, I cannot be that way." Instead, they open themselves to change as a natural part of life. Consider another example. An American veteran returned from war carrying the weight of PTSD. He often identified himself as a broken soldier. But in therapy, when he learned to see that, "I am not only PTSD," he began to recognize that he was also a father, a friend, and a lover of music. With that realization, healing slowly began. Non-self became the key to releasing him from the prison of a painful label. In careers, non-self also opens the door to creativity. An artist in Chicago confessed that when she clung to the idea of being an artist, she was always afraid of failure and desperate for recognition. But when she practiced non-self, she realized that art did not belong to her, it flowed through her. Paradoxically, when she let go of ego, her work was praised more than ever. Here is a practice you can try. Write down 3 labels you often use to describe yourself. For example, "I am a hard-working employee," "I am a good mother," "I am an anxious person." Then ask, are these labels fixed? Can they change? When you see that every role is temporary, you will feel lighter. Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh once taught, "You do not need to become someone else. You only need to be yourself in this present moment." This is the essence of non-self, freeing you from the illusion of having to hold a permanent image. Have you ever experienced a moment of non-self? Perhaps when you were playing sports and lost awareness of yourself, there was only movement, or when you listened to music and dissolved into the melody. In those moments, you did not disappear, you simply stepped out of the narrow cage of self and merged with the wider flow of life. In American society, communication skills are often seen as the key to success. People are taught to talk a lot, to talk fast, and to be persuasive. But Buddhism reminds us of a deeper art, right speech, words that are truthful, kind, and timely, born out of silence. Silence is not weakness, it is the space to understand and to choose words wisely. In a country flooded with media, advertising, and social networks, silence becomes even more precious. A manager in Chicago once shared that he used to interrupt his employees to push his opinions, but after learning meditation, he began to pause, breathe, and listen fully. As a result, his staff felt more respected, and his decisions became clearer. This is right speech in the American workplace. Science confirms this truth. A Harvard University study found that leaders who listen more than they speak are often rated as more trustworthy and more effective. In other words, silence at the right moment is not just spiritual practice, it is a practical leadership skill. Inside American families, right speech also has the power to heal. A mother in Texas said her teenage daughter often raised her voice in arguments. Instead of reacting immediately, she practiced taking 3 breaths before responding. Then she said, "I want to understand you better," instead of, "You are wrong." The result was a much closer relationship. This shows how silence and compassionate words can transform the atmosphere at home. In Buddhist tradition, the Buddha offered 4 standards for speech. It must be truthful, beneficial, gentle, and timely. If words do not meet these 4 conditions, silence is better. This wisdom is especially relevant in today's America, where social media encourages quick and harsh reactions. One negative comment can destroy someone's reputation, while one kind message can save them from despair. Here is a simple practice. Before hitting send on a message or email, ask yourself, is this true? Will it bring peace? Is it necessary? If not, delete it. This is how we practice right speech in the digital age. A teacher in California applied this in her classroom. She used to snap at students when they made mistakes, but after learning right speech, she began saying, "Would you like to try it another way?" instead of scolding. The result? Her students grew more confident, and the classroom became lighter. Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh once said, "A single word can bring the greatest happiness or the deepest pain. When we pause before speaking and speak with compassion, we become a source of peace for society." You can try this today. In your next conversation, instead of cutting in, listen until the other person finishes. When it is your turn, speak slowly, with the intention to be helpful. Then share your experience in the comments, because you might just discover the hidden power of right speech in America's fast-paced world. In the 5 remembrances, the Buddha emphasized, "All of us will grow old, we will fall ill, we will die, everything we love will change, and we can only carry our karma with us." This is a reminder of impermanence, a truth that many Americans often avoid. In American culture, death is usually hidden away. People rarely talk about it unless they have to, but this avoidance only makes the fear larger. When the COVID-19 pandemic struck, millions of American families came face to face with impermanence. Many turned to Buddhist teachings for comfort and acceptance. A study by the CDC showed that those who practiced meditation on impermanence experienced 25% less fear of death. They no longer saw death as an enemy, but as a natural part of the journey. By accepting impermanence, they found peace even in the middle of crisis. A man in New York shared that when he lost his wife to COVID, he felt as if life had ended. But in an online meditation retreat, he learned to reflect, "This too shall pass." He chose to remember his wife with gratitude instead of blaming fate. A few months later, he joined a community support group, helping others who had also lost loved ones. Impermanence had turned his pain into a force of compassion. In personal life, impermanence reminds us to cherish the present. A mother in California used to worry endlessly about her children's future, but through meditation, she realized, the future is never certain, only the present is real. From then on, she focused on enjoying every meal and every walk with her kids. And in doing so, her family bond became much deeper. In American society, impermanence also reveals itself through upheavals, economic crises, political unrest, climate change. Everything shifts. Instead of panicking, Buddhism invites us to see impermanence as a chance for renewal. Just as autumn leaves fall so that spring may arrive, social crises can open doors to new beginnings. Here is a simple practice you can try. Choose one object you love, a flower, or perhaps a favorite coffee cup. Look at it and softly remind yourself, this will change. At first it may feel sad, but gradually you will feel gratitude. You will learn to honor the fragile beauty of the moment. Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh once taught, "Because everything is impermanent, everything is possible." This is a profound source of hope. If suffering were permanent, there would be no way out. But because life changes, suffering can transform, and happiness can be born. So, are you ready to face impermanence? Share in the comments. What change in your life once brought you pain, but eventually opened a new door? Reincarnation is often understood as the endless cycle of birth and death across lifetimes. But if you look more closely, you will see that reincarnation also shows up in daily life. Every time we repeat the same old habits, the same old reactions, that is a form of samsara. And each time we break free from those cycles, we experience a kind of spiritual rebirth. In American society, many people feel trapped in the loop of working, stressing, burning out, and then working again. They call it the rat race. But Buddhism reminds us that any cycle can be broken with mindfulness. When you pause, breathe, and choose a different response, you step into a new circle. An artist in Los Angeles shared that after his career collapsed, He felt as if he had died inside. But through meditation and creative work, he found inspiration again. He said, "I was born again, not in another body, but in this very life." This is reincarnation as a cycle of learning. Psychology agrees. A study from the University of California showed that meditation can help break negative loops in the brain, reducing stress by up to 35%. When the brain forms new pathways, you escape from the old cycles. This shows that reincarnation is not only a religious belief, but also a psychological reality. In American culture, we see many examples of spiritual rebirth. A former prisoner, after leaving jail, became a social activist, helping young people avoid the same mistakes. An athlete, after a devastating injury, found new purpose in coaching. They did not wait for another lifetime. Right here, in this life, they experienced reincarnation, dying in one role and being born in another. Here is a practice you can try. Write down one cycle you want to break. Maybe it is the cycle of anxiety, self-criticism, or workplace stress. Then add one mindful step to shift the loop. For example, stress to deep breath to 5-minute walk, instead of stress to overeating to guilt. By adding a moment of awareness, you are reborn in your everyday life. Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh once said, "Each mindful step is a rebirth." This means you do not have to wait for another lifetime to change. Every breath, every step can be a new beginning. Have you ever experienced such a rebirth? Maybe after a painful breakup you discovered a new self, or after a big failure you found a different path. That is the gift of reincarnation, the endless cycle of learning. In Tibetan Buddhism, the universe is compared to a mirror. A mirror does not hold on to any image, yet it reflects everything. Our mind is the same, it reflects reality. When the mind is clear, the world appears sharp. When the mind is dusty, reality becomes distorted. In modern psychology, this is called the cognitive lens effect. A study from Princeton University found that people in a state of anxiety often judge ordinary situations as threatening. By contrast, those with a calm mind see the same situations as opportunities. The universe hasn't changed, the mirror of the mind has. A scientist in Boston shared that when he was frustrated during an experiment, every piece of data looked like a mistake. But when he was calm, he saw in that same data a new direction for research. This is the mirror of the universe reality, shaped by the mind that observes it. In everyday American life, you can see this in relationships. A friend makes a casual joke. If your mind is restless, you may hear it as criticism, but if your mind is at ease, you hear it as care. The friend hasn't changed, only the reflection in your mind has. Quantum physics even suggests something similar. The behavior of particles can shift depending on how they are observed. Many scientists see echoes of the Buddha's teaching here, that the mind influences reality. While the debate continues, one thing is certain: our mental state shapes our lived experience. Here's a small practice. Each morning, imagine your mind as a mirror. Notice if it is clear or dusty. If you see dust, anxiety, anger, take a deep breath, smile, and whisper, "I am cleaning the mirror." Starting the day this way allows the world to reflect back with greater clarity. A woman in Seattle shared that she often felt overwhelmed at work, but after practicing this, she noticed that when her mind was bright, colleagues were more cooperative, and everything seemed smoother. The universe hadn't changed, her mirror had, and so the world looked different. Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh once said, "When there is peace in you, there is peace in the world." This is not just moral advice, it is psychological truth. Have you ever had a day when everything went wrong? Perhaps your mind was clouded with worry, and other days when everything flowed easily. That was your mind shining clear. Share your experience in the comments so we can all see the power of the universe's mirror together. In the Noble Eightfold Path, the Buddha emphasized right effort. It is not blind struggle, but effort with mindfulness, free from clinging, free from burnout. In American society, where workaholic culture is so widespread, this teaching feels more urgent than ever. A Gallup survey found that 76% of US employees have experienced burnout at least once. The pressure to do more to prove your worth drives many into exhaustion and emptiness. Right effort offers another way. Work with your full capacity, but don't let outcomes define who you are. A tech worker in Silicon Valley once shared that he worked 14 hours a day. When a project failed, he saw it as a personal failure. But through meditation, he realized his value was not tied to external success. He began working mindfully, resting when needed, and paradoxically, his productivity went up. This is the power of right effort. Science agrees. A Harvard study found that people who maintain work-life balance report 30% higher happiness and less stress. By knowing when to stop, they not only work more effectively, but also preserve long-term health. In personal life, right effort also transforms relationships. A mother in Texas admitted she once tried to be the perfect mom, cooking elaborate meals, controlling her kids, chasing social standards. But that only drained her energy and pushed her children away. When she learned mindfulness, she chose to do less, but with more love. A simple meal, cooked with presence, became a true gift. This is right effort, not doing more, but doing deeply. Even in corporate America, companies like Google, Intel, and Aetna have introduced mindful working. Employees who practice meditation at work report less stress and greater focus. This proves that when effort rests on mindfulness, the results benefit both the company and the people. Here's a small practice you can try. Each morning, pick your 3 most important tasks. As you do them, silently remind yourself, I give my best, but I don't cling to the result. When finished, take a deep breath and let go. Over time, you'll notice the shift. You feel less pressure, yet your work carries more quality. Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh once said, "Don't try to become something, just breathe and walk." That is the image of right effort acting from life itself, not from ambition. Would you like to try it? Share in the comments. What is one thing you will do today wholeheartedly, but without clinging to the outcome? Mandala is a sacred symbol of order in Tibetan Buddhism. Every circle, every line exists in harmony, forming a balanced whole. But perhaps even more important than the finished mandala is the process of creating it with patience, mindfulness, and the acceptance of impermanence when it is eventually swept away. In modern American life, many people feel overwhelmed. Endless work, constant emails, chaotic news. Mandala reminds us that even within disorder, there is always a center to return to. A Silicon Valley engineer shared that every evening he spends 20 minutes drawing mandalas. At first, it felt like just an art hobby, but gradually he realized that focusing on each line calmed his mind and the chaos of the day dissolved. Mandala became his way of finding order in the high-pressure world of technology. Research from Drexel University shows that drawing or coloring mandalas can reduce stress by up to 40%. The reason is that it brings the brain into a flow state, where worry drops away and full presence in the moment takes over. The mandala principle also applies in family life. A mother in Texas once felt her days were pure chaos, housework, children, finances, work. But when she learned about mandala, she chose love as the center. Everything else revolved around it. By holding that center, she no longer got lost in small details and found a deeper peace. Communities in America have also used mandalas as a form of collective healing. At a school in California, students worked together to create a massive mandala. Each child was responsible for one section, and when the pieces came together, the students saw how every difference contributed to a beautiful whole. Mandala also teaches impermanence. Tibetan monks, after finishing a sand mandala, always sweep it away and pour the grains into a river. For Americans used to holding tightly to achievements, this practice offers a precious reminder. everything changes. What matters is not the result, but the journey. Here's a simple practice you can try. Draw a small mandala, focusing your full attention on each line. When finished, admire it for a few moments, then tear it up. Feel the lightness of letting go. This is how you bring the wisdom of mandala into a stressful modern life. Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh once said, "When you find your center, you can stand firm even in the storm." Mandala is a reminder of that center, a place within you that you can return to at any time. In Buddhism, compassion is not a soft or weak feeling. It is a profound strength that can heal both personal and social wounds. In today's America, marked by division, compassion shines like a light, reminding us that no one is truly alone. A nurse in New York shared that during the height of the COVID-19 pandemic, she watched dozens of patients pass away each day. If she had seen it only as a job, she would have collapsed. But by practicing compassion, seeing each patient as her own parent, brother, or sister, she found the strength to keep going. Compassion didn't drain her. It nourished her inner resilience. Research from Emory University shows that compassion meditation increases brain activity linked to empathy and happiness, while also improving heart health. Compassion, then, is not just philosophy, it is medicine for the heart. Across America, many movements are built on compassion, helping the homeless, supporting immigrants, protecting the environment. A volunteer in California said, "I don't help because I'm stronger, but because I see their suffering as my own." Compassion also bridges families. A couple in Boston was on the brink of divorce, but through mindfulness training, they learned to look at each other with compassion. Instead of asking, "What's wrong with you?" they began asking, "What pain are you carrying?" That simple shift transformed their marriage from opponents into teammates. Here's a practice you can try. Each night, close your eyes and silently send blessings to 3 people, someone you love, someone neutral, and someone you're in conflict with. Whisper, "May you be safe. May you be at peace." Over time, you'll feel your heart expand. Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh once said, "A compassionate smile can save a life." In a society as pressured as America, even the smallest act to smile, a kind word can ripple out and change everything. Have you ever experienced this? Perhaps a hug at the right moment carried you through a hard day. Share your story in the comments, so together we can spread the light of compassion. Trusting the flow is the final lesson of this journey. It reminds us that life does not need to be tightly controlled, it needs to be lived with. When we let go, we discover that the river already has its own wisdom to carry us forward. Vipassana meditation is a powerful practice to nurture that trust. In this meditation, you simply observe. The breath comes and goes, feelings rise and fade, thoughts appear and dissolve. Every moment whispers the truth, nothing is fixed. When you accept this, change no longer terrifies you. A professor in California once shared that he used to control everything, his classroom, his students' reactions, even his career. But through Vipassana, he realized he only needed to plant seeds with sincerity, and the results would follow their own course. When he relaxed into that flow, students loved his teaching more, and he himself felt at peace. In America's fast-changing world of technology and economy, adaptability is a precious gift. Research at MIT shows that people who practice Vipassana are 35% more adaptable to change. They don't just endure, they move like water. A woman in Florida lost her home to a hurricane. At first, she thought her life was ruined, but through a community meditation group, she learned to trust the flow. She said, "I cannot fight the storm, but I can learn to keep walking." With that trust, she rebuilt her life, stronger than before. On a personal level, trusting the flow frees us from endless comparison. Many Americans feel pressured to succeed like others, but when you trust the flow, you see, every river has its own path. The Mississippi doesn't need to be the Colorado, and you don't need to be anyone but yourself. Here's a practice. At the end of the day, Write down 3 things you couldn't control. Then, breathe deeply and add the words, "I let it flow." Over time, you'll feel lighter, as if you've placed your burdens back into the river of life. Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh once said, "Let the river carry you. Don't try to carry the whole river on your shoulders." This is the essence of trusting the flow, not giving up, but giving up clinging. And in that release, you find freedom. Would you dare to try living one day like this? A day without forcing yourself to be perfect, without controlling everything, just breathing, observing, and letting life guide you. Share your story in the comments, because your experience may inspire someone else to trust the flow too. We have traveled through 13 lessons: letting go, karma, emptiness, interdependence, non-self, right speech, impermanence, rebirth, the mirror of the mind, right effort, mandala, compassion, and trusting the flow. But how do we bring them into everyday life in America? The answer lies in mindfulness and meditation. A Harvard study shows that people spend nearly 47% of their time thinking about the past or the future, and that wandering mind makes them less happy. Mindfulness brings us back to the present moment, where these 13 lessons become alive. For example, letting go can be practiced with a breath. Inhale, notice tension. Exhale, release it. Karma can be lived by planting a seed of kindness at work. Impermanence can be remembered by treasuring time with family. A businessman in San Francisco shared that after a 7-day retreat, he brought these lessons into his company. He began meetings with 5 minutes of breathing, encouraged employees to write thank you notes weekly, and saw both morale and productivity rise. In education, a California school integrated mindfulness into the classroom. Students learned to let go of exam anxiety, to practice compassion with friends, and to accept impermanence when grades weren't perfect. Violence decreased, and cooperation increased. Here's a simple daily practice you can try. Morning, sit quietly for 5 minutes, whispering, "I let go of what I don't need." Midday, write down 1 compassionate act you did or will do. Evening, reflect on impermanence. "This day will not return. I am grateful I lived it fully." Science confirms these practices. Research at the University of Wisconsin shows meditation reduces activity in anxiety-related areas of the brain and strengthens resilience. A Gallup survey found employees who practice mindfulness are less burned out and more engaged. Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh said, "Understanding is the foundation of love. When you understand, you suffer less." These 13 lessons are pathways to understanding ourselves, others, and life itself. And from that understanding, compassion and peace naturally arise. So let me ask you, which of the 13 lessons speaks to you the most, and where will you begin your practice? Share your reflections in the comments. Your words may inspire someone else to begin their own journey toward peace. You've walked with me through a long journey from letting go to trusting the flow, but knowledge means little if we don't turn it into lived experience. So I want to invite you to join a small challenge, the 7-day meditation challenge. Each day, just 10 minutes. No special room, no candles, no music, only you and your breath. Here's how. Day 1, letting go. Sit quietly, breathe deeply, and on the exhale whisper, "I let go." Release any tension from the day. Day 2, karma. As you inhale, recall 1 kind act you did. As you exhale, send that energy to someone else. Day 3, emptiness. Observe your body. Notice it does not exist alone. It relies on food, air, sunlight. Day 4, non-self. When the thought I arises, smile and whisper, "Just a thought." See that you are not trapped in a rigid self. Day 5, right speech. Before speaking, pause for 1 breath and ask, "Will this word bring peace?" Day 6, compassion. Sit quietly, close your eyes, and send blessings. May I be at peace. May all beings be at peace. Day 7, trusting the flow. Imagine yourself as a leaf floating on the river. Let the breath carry you. After 7 days, you may notice a shift, your mind calmer, your heart more open, and your sense of connection deeper. Harvard research shows that after just 8 weeks of mindfulness, the brain's structure changes, stress-related areas shrink, while regions linked to memory and learning grow. Even a few minutes each day can reshape your mind. To deepen the journey, I invite you to share in the comments. Which day will you start? Which lesson feels most alive for you right now? After 7 days, what new insight do you notice in your life? I also encourage you to keep a meditation journal. Just a few lines a day. What did I let go of today? Or, what seed of compassion did I plant? Writing it down makes the path clearer. Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh once said, "Each day we live, we have a chance to begin again." This 7-day challenge is such a chance. So, are you ready to begin? If yes, type in the comments, "I'm in." Let this community become a river of people, learning together to let go, to love, and to trust the flow. We've walked together through a long journey, not only exploring 13 Buddhist lessons, but also weaving in scientific insights and real-life stories from America. Yet, this journey becomes truly alive when you step in with your own story. In the US, many people feel lonely, even while surrounded by crowds. A Cigna survey found that nearly 60% of Americans say they feel lonely on a regular basis. But when we share our stories, we break down walls of isolation. This too is compassion and interbeing, connecting through truth and lived experience. I invite you to share. Which of the 13 lessons touched you the most? Have you ever used meditation or mindfulness to overcome a challenge? Do you have a story of letting go, impermanence, or compassion in your own life? When you share, you're not only telling me, you're speaking to thousands of others also searching for peace. Your story may be the candle that lights another. A woman in California once commented that the lesson on non-self helped her out of depression after retirement. A veteran in Texas shared that the teaching on rebirth helped him rise from PTSD. A student in New York wrote that the 7-day meditation challenge gave him restful sleep again after years of insomnia. These stories are living proof that Buddhist wisdom is not abstract, it works here and now in American life. A small practice you can do right now. Write just 3 lines about your experience with one lesson. Keep it short but true, then share it in the comments. By doing so, you help build a community of peace. Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh once said, "Happiness is not an individual matter. When one person suffers, the whole community suffers. When one person is happy, the whole community benefits." That's the spirit I want to build with you. A community where we lift each other up through stories, through listening, and through trust that peace is possible. So, are you ready? Share your experience now, and if you're not ready, simply begin with a blessing. May we all be at peace. Even that small wish is enough to start the flow of connection. We've walked together on a long journey from letting go, impermanence, and non-self, to trusting the flow. Each lesson is like a seed, and when you plant it in daily life, peace will slowly bloom. Thank you for spending this time with me. If this video touched your heart, please like, subscribe, and share, so the light of compassion can reach even further. And remember, you don't have to control everything. Just breathe, let go, and trust the flow. Peace is already here.